Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
The BBC's Deputy Political Editor, James Landale, is here. Welcome. Now, despite the divisions in the Tory party over Europe and near unanimity, I suppose, in the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn hasn't demonstrated much interest in raising this as an issue at PMQs. Will he today?
No, I'd be surprised. It's the open goal. It's where we would naturally think that's the natural weight of debate within Parliament at the moment. But as you say, he has a habit of not doing this. I think, he might try choose something left of field. Pensions, maybe. I know a lot of Labour MPs are talking about that at the moment in terms of when the state pension age may or not be
working to
changed.
95.
What sort of transitional protection should be in place, particularly for women? He might go for something. I mean, there's an IFS report out about child poverty.
Yes.
He could go on that. He could go on something specific, like, the government's announced this morning that they're not going to go ahead with vaccines for meningitis, which I know has been a big story in the news in recent weeks. And so
I'm going to stop you there. We'll find out. Let's go over to the Commons now.
Jeremy Corbyn!
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's 3 years since the government announced a policy of tax-free childcare. Could the Prime Minister tell us what the hold-up is?
Well, we're introducing the tax-free childcare along with the 30 hours of childcare for everyone with 3 and 4-year-olds, with a £6 billion commitment, with the start of the 30 hours coming in a pilot scheme this year.
Jeremy Corbyn!
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Treasury website describes it as a long-term plan. Well, it certainly is that, because it was announced in 2013 and isn't apparently going to be introduced until next year. Could the Prime Minister tell us why his promise of 30 hours free childcare for 3 and 4-year-olds is not there for 1 in 3 working parents who want their children to be cared for in a preschool?
Well, first of all, on the tax relief on childcare, we lost a court case against some of the existing providers, so there was a delay, and the tax-free childcare will come in 2017. As for the 30 hours, as I've said, there will be some pilot schemes this year and full implementation next year, which is in line with what we said in our manifesto. But I'm delighted he is helping me to promote government policy. Because, of course, when I became Prime Minister, I think we only had 10 hours of childcare, and it's gone up to 12 and then to 15 and now to 30. These are all the things that you can do if you have a strong economy with a sound plan. You're getting your deficit down, your economy's growing. You're able to do all of these things, and I'm glad we're able to talk about them.
Jeremy Corbyn!
Today, Mr. Speaker, the National Audit Office report confirms that 1/3 of families promised 30 hours free childcare now won't receive it. This is a broken promise. The NAO report also warns that many childcare providers are not offering the new entitlement due to insufficient funding. There are 41,000 3-year-olds missing out on free early education as a result of this. Will the Prime Minister intervene and ensure those children get the start in life that they deserve?
We want all of these children to have the start in life they deserve, and I'm glad he mentions the National Audit Office report. Let me read him some of the things it says. It says this: the department has successfully implemented the entitlement to free childcare for 3 and 4-year-olds with almost universal take-up of hours offered to parents. I think we should be congratulating the Secretary of State. The department's made significant progress in providing free entitlement to early years childcare. Parents and children are clearly benefiting from these entitlements. Stakeholders are positive about increasing the entitlement to 30 hours. All of these things we're able to do because we've got a strong and sound economy. What a contrast it would be if we listened to the Right Honourable Gentleman. And because I regularly subscribe to the Islington Tribune, I can announce to the House his latest economic advisor, one Mr Yanis Varoufakis. He was the Greek finance minister who left his economy in ruins. That is Labour's policy in 2 words. Acropolis now.
Mr. Speaker, that is not much help to the 41,000 children who are not benefiting from what they were promised by the government. And looking further on in the education life of children, according to the government's own figures, 500,000 children in primary schools are in classes of over 31. 15,000 are in classes of over 40. We all know the importance of both preschool and early years of education to give all our children a decent start in life. Yet 500,000 are living in poverty and many are in oversized classes. Isn't it time for a serious government intervention to sort this problem out?
Let me bring him up to date on the figures on all of these areas. First of all, obviously introducing these extra hours for childcare is a huge operation for the childcare providers, but I can update him since the National Audit Office report, actually, that said only 58% of disadvantaged 2-year-olds were accessing the free childcare offer. The latest information shows it's over 70% of those. Now, he mentioned the number of teachers and overcrowded classes. Well, first of all, there are 13,100 more teachers than there were in 2010 because we've invested in Teach First, we've invested in bursaries, and we've made sure that teaching is a worthwhile career. And when it comes to school places, and I want to answer him because there are actually 453 fewer schools that are full or over capacity compared to 2010, so that is progress, and there are 36,500 fewer pupils who are in schools that are overcrowded. Again, why have we been able to do this? We protected education funded, protecting the money that went following every pupil into the school, introduced the pupil premium, the first time any government had recognised the extra needs of children from the most poor backgrounds, done all of that so our school system is growing, there are more places, there are fewer overcrowded schools, all because we've got the strong economy and the right values in place.
Mr. Speaker, the problem is that class sizes are growing. The problem is that there's a crisis of teacher shortages as well. And I've been talking, as I'm sure the Prime Minister and others have, to many teachers. I've got a question from one, who I quote from Tom. I've been teaching for 10 years and I'm currently head of design and technology at a successful secondary school. With increasing numbers of teachers leaving the profession, will the government now accept that there is a crisis of recruitment and also of retention of teachers in this crucial profession?
I've just given the figures that there are 13,000 more teachers in our schools than when I became Prime Minister. But if he worries about teacher recruitment, perhaps he can explain this. How is it going to help his party's proposal to put up the basic rate of tax, starting in Scotland? That is going to mean classroom teachers, nursery teachers, secondary school teachers, all paying more tax. What we're doing is helping teachers by saying you can earn £11,000 before you pay any income tax at all. I don't think that recruiting teachers is simply about money. It's also about having a good school system, which we have in place in our country. But it certainly won't help if we listen to Labour and put up people's taxes.
Jeremy Corbyn!
The Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, seems to be in a bit of denial here. Ofsted and the National Audit Office all confirm there is a shortage and a crisis of teachers. Ensuring there are enough excellent teachers in our schools is obviously fundamental to the life chances of children. When 70% of head teachers warned they're now having to use agency staff to staff their classrooms, isn't it time the government intervened and looked at the real cost of this, which is damage to children's education, but also £1.3 billion spent last year on agency teachers? We had this agency working situation in the National Health Service and also in education. Aren't we moving into an era which we can term Agency Britain?
I think he's got to look at the facts rather than talk down people who are working so hard to teach children in our schools. And the facts are these. Our teachers are better qualified than ever. A record 96.6% of teachers in state-funded schools now have a degree or higher qualification. Those are the facts. And I would argue that going into teaching, and now Teach First is the most popular destination for Oxbridge graduates, something that never happened under a Labour government. If you want to look at encouraging people to go into teaching, you've got to know that you've got a good school system with more academies, more free schools, higher qualifications, making sure that we've got rigour and discipline in our classroom, all of which has improved. But all of that is only possible if you have a strong and growing economy to fund the schools that our children need.
Order.
So it brings us to the end of Prime Minister's questions. Leader of the Opposition, Mr Corbyn, went on educational-related issues, to begin with childcare for infants, then moved on to what he claimed was a growing crisis in teachers and growing class sizes. We'll come back to some of that and more in a minute, but first, Joko, what are the viewers saying?
Yes, well, Tim Bass said attacking Tory cuts has been a successful Labour strategy. However, Mr Corbyn's points on additional childcare provision and extension of state provision didn't hit home. It just gave David Cameron an opportunity to talk about an area of policy where the Tories are traditionally weak. Simon Cramp says same drivel from the Prime Minister as usual, and are voters so dumb that government backbenchers need to ask planted questions? Great question on free childcare and when it is going to start, and attacking the lack of progress. James Patterson, though, says Jeremy Corbyn bleeding all over the floor again, Prime Minister drowning him under a sea of figures. And this from Neil Pleeby, who says, Jeremy Corbyn, new suit, proper tie, done up to the collar. Now Dave's mum just needs to teach him how to do a Windsor knot. That was Neil in Orpington.
This is a Windsor knot.
I thought you'd say that.
You did?
Yes, can you give lessons?
No, because I do it automatically now. If you ask me how to do it, I'd have no idea how to do it.
That's all, folks.